Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
All right, so Theo Vaughn talked to Bernie Sanders, I believe for the second time on his podcast. Bernie has kind of been doing the rounds with podcasts like that. He spoke to Tim Dillon not that long ago, and I think wants to stay on that circuit as much as possible. And, you know, they seem to be open to him. He seems to represent to guys like that, somebody from the other side who's honest. People across the board tend to recognize Bernie's sincerity. So I don't begrudge him for taking the opportunity to talk to some people that might be kind of on the other side of the aisle, although it is a bit controversial. And I think Bernie is trying to carve out a message. He's trying to make his message flexible, because he did spend a lot of time rallying people that were kind of to the left of Kamala Harris, and maybe people that didn't show up in that coalition but wanted some leadership outside of it, or a path forward. That's kind of what the whole oligarchy thing was about, is like left, center left kind of vibes. So it makes sense to also push into the right a little bit and start to talk to some of these people to try to see what kind of message could work. Which, if you're doubting that strategy, remember that that is what Zohran Mamdani did to win in New York, at least partially. As far as Bernie doing that, I think it's mixed in his aptness. The podcast just is an interesting format that makes for interesting conversations. So here's an example of that, where they talk about AI, and I think Bernie kind of misses the mark a little bit here on AI, where it's good that they talked about it and some of the implications and like what happens to the labor force under AI. But I think what Bernie says here kind of is the type of thing that we need to get away from in this conversation. So check that out.
I have proposed, and I get criticized for this every day, a moratorium on data centers. Why am I doing that? Well, number one, I want to protect people's communities. That's number one, electric rails, water, and all that. But also, I gotta take a deep breath. Your point, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
Are we prepared if tens of millions of people lose their jobs in the next decade? All right, what happens? How do they stay alive? So the economics is one thing, but I want to take it a step further. And this is, now you're into crazy world, okay? This is science fiction, except it ain't science fiction.
Yeah, we're here.
That's right, we're here, okay. So you understand this AI now, you know what you know based on what you've read, what you've seen, your life experience, right? Mm-hmm. Me the same, every human being the same. These AIs have absorbed all knowledge. Every book that's been written, every mathematical formula, every physics proposition, they got it. That's what they got. I had a public meeting in Georgetown a few months ago with a guy named Jeffrey Hinton, a really nice guy.
Yeah, he's the godfather of AI, right?
Right, he's the guy, he's been studying the issue.
Alleged, yeah.
He's been studying the issue for decades. Came up, he got a Nobel Prize in physics, okay? It's a big deal.
There he is, right there. Yeah, I've heard of a couple of his speeches.
Yeah, and this is what he says. He says there is no question in his mind that at some point, sooner than later, AI will be smarter than human beings. And it is not science fiction to worry about whether or not AI is going to communicate with each other in a language that people don't know.
Right.
Ain't going to be English. And that they may see the human race as an impediment to their progress. Okay? You with me? Mm-hmm. All right. That's the doomsday scenario.
So that the computer's like, God, these people are slowing us down.
You got it. Okay. Now, again, some people, I think nobody thinks that is crazy anymore. Some people say, well, it's kind of unlikely, maybe 5 to 1, maybe 10 to 1, but it is incredibly risky. And they don't have the
so it's good that Bernie is focusing on AI, and he's pointing out that people in Congress are not aware of it. They're not prepared to deal with this. So it's good that he's applying himself to it, because it has huge implications for the labor force, which is one of Bernie's main priorities. I think, though, that he falls into a little bit of the sci-fi aspect of it, even though he's saying that it's not that and this is real life. And in some cases it is. We're definitely in sci-fi territory. There's no question about it. But I do think in the case of AI, or specifically large language models, which most of the AI that we know of and are referring to are large language models. And so that's actually a different type of technology than what he's talking about. And so this idea that AI is going to become intelligent enough to outsmart humanity and sort of communicate amongst itself is more of a stretch than he realizes, because he's lumping together a couple things. Essentially, the AI that we have now is more focused on the output. It's more focused on generating a likely response to what the input is. And so they have vastly complicated algorithms and simulations that they run to give an answer that is likely to be what you want. So that can manifest in all sorts of ways. It manifests as images or videos, or, have it write a whole essay for you. And so there are limits to that in terms of what it means that it's quote unquote intelligent. It is literally artificial intelligence. It's pretending to be intelligent. So that's an important distinction when talking about AI, because it refocuses the threats of this technology. And it's not to say we'll never get to a point where we have real artificial intelligence that is outsmarting humans. It could happen faster than we think, but it would need to be some different type of system than what we're seeing on the market right now. Not to mention the bubble potentially popping, which I'm not sure if that's going to happen or what's going to happen. The programs do seem to keep getting better, and obviously we're investing into these insane data centers, and they do mention in this interview that that requires some labor to build, but after that it's staffed by virtually nobody, and they're skyrocketing the prices in small towns and using tons of water, and they're just generally completely inefficient, and they are not going to produce the type of gains and the type of benefits that would be required to make the investment worth it. That's the problem with AI, and we're going to really pay for that on the other end of all this, unless a huge breakthrough in computing that allows us to do these AI processes much more efficiently happens, which as of right now it has not. So now getting into the part where Theo says to Bernie that he believes Trump has kind of an authoritarian vibe, but there's good things, there's bad things about it. And this was in the course of a conversation about immigration, and Bernie kind of quickly checks him on that. So here's that clip real quick.
Recently with the ICE raids that have happened in Minnesota, and they're happening everywhere, right? I mean, it's become a big thing. And for me, a lot of it is in response to, there was such a border policy that was allowing a lot of extra people here, right? Extra people that were not meeting up with their probation officer, not probation officers, right, but they're like attendance officers at times, that sort of situation, right? So it seems like in this situation, we had to hire a lot extra ICE agents, some of them even unqualified. Anyway, it's left us in a unique place in America right now, but also just another place where people in the streets are having to figure things out. Right. And we are all the ones fighting about it online.
All right, let me briefly tell you my view. People agree with me or not agree with me. I agree with you that our border security was weak, okay? There is no excuse, all right? My dad came from Poland. Other people's parents came from all over the world. All right, you come to it. There are reasons why people have kind of tried to slip into the United States. 99% of the times, it's poverty, it's violence, drug violence, and wherever it is, Mexico, Guatemala, or whatever. All right, but that's illegal, and it should be prohibited. We need borders, strong borders. We need an immigration process, in my view. Okay, that's number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, we have between 10 and 14 million undocumented people in this country right now. No one knows exactly.
Yeah.
All right. But the vast majority of those people work hard and obey American law right now. During COVID, by the way, those were the people who were working in the meatpacking plants. Those are the people who got a lot of the virus. Those are the people who died. They kept the economy going in many respects. All right. In my view, and I think what most Americans agree with, if you have lived in this, even if you came across the border illegally, but if you have obeyed the rules of America, you haven't committed crimes, you're working hard, you're raising your family, you need a path towards citizenship as part of comprehensive immigration reform. And by the way, given the fact that we have worker shortages all over this country, we need those workers, okay? Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, what we need.
Especially skilled labor we need right now.
That's right. That's right. And a lot of these people are doing important work, keeping the economy going. What Trump has done is, in this big, beautiful bill of his, greatly expanded funding for ICE. And in my view, what he is doing is not just trying to get, and by the way, it used to be, we're trying to get the criminals out of America. Remember that?
Yeah.
Rapists and the murderers. We're well beyond that. Now you're knocking on doors of American citizens. You're arresting Americans. You're arresting people who have never had.
Oh, now they're finding anybody that makes good tapas.
You got it. That's right. That's exactly right. Okay. And I think this is what frightens me. What Trump is using ICE for now is a domestic military operation. And it's part of this intimidation. And if you stand up, and that woman in Minnesota, Good is her name?
Renee Good.
Renee Good, all right. I saw that video, You don't shoot somebody in the head who's in that car. And I think it's Trump saying, I have the power, and we got domestic army, it's called ICE, and we're going to go out there, and we're going to arrest, and we're going to intimidate. And part of that, this is what Trumpism is about. It's intimidation. All right, you're in the media, you're CBS, you say something, I'm going to sue you, Theo, you say something I don't like, I may sue you. I don't like Venezuela, I'm going to, send in the troops. I got the power and I'm going to use it. I really, that scares me because that's what authoritarianism is about. So should we deal with immigration through comprehensive reform? Absolutely. I think that's what the American people want. Do we want guys with masks around their face, dragging people out of their apartments, out of their cars? I don't think so. I don't think that's what the American people want.
Yeah.
More and more resentment to that.
And we're in a tough spot too because we see things more now, right? We see all of it.
Yes, you do.
We see it. So before you would just hear about it, you would knew it was a plan,
but
you didn't have the visual effect of it and how the visual effect makes you feel.
Cell phones have revolutionized politics, and that's everybody got a cell phone can take a
And I think that's one of the side effects. I agree. Like Trump has an authoritarian energy, right? There's this, and there's positive parts about that, and there's negative parts about that.
No, I don't agree that there's anything positive about authoritarianism.
Well, maybe authoritarianism, I think somebody that
decisiveness, yes.
That's what I mean then.
Decisiveness, yes. Making bold decisions, yes.
Yes, that's the part that
authoritarianism, disregarding the Constitution and the rule of law, sorry, no.
I agree with that. That's
so
what I
Bernie has said this before when he was talking to Tim Dillon. He said the same thing about how he agrees that there should be a strong border and that he believes that was a failure of the Biden administration. So it's a pretty pointed concession that he's making in these conversations, which has gotten him some flack. I've criticized him for it. The thing is that for them, it's common sense. And partially that's because it's been oversimplified. And so Bernie, rather than fighting against them on their logic on it, is agreeing that there should be a secure border and that the laws should be there in terms of how to get in, and then saying the thing about how ICE has gotten out of control, etc. And then they get into this thing about authoritarianism. So it makes sense to try to build that bridge. The only flaw in this is that when you get to the thing about authoritarianism, if people can't recognize that the lies about the border and the nature of the crisis, as well as the nature of people's status, not making the point that a lot of these people who are being rounded up and deported were in fact in the system somewhere and did go about some process to document themselves, become residents, become citizens, and yet in that process, both because of the broken and understaffed state of it, those people kind of exist in gray areas, various gray areas, some of them for very long times. And so they're being rounded up viciously. And Theo says this thing about how, well, now we can see it and it makes it look worse. So before it was just promises, it was just plans, but now we can see it. Which I find disheartening because I've been saying the whole time that this thing about rounding people up and mass deporting them is going to be ugly as fuck, and people are not ready for that. And so, I mean, it's kind of vindication on that even if Theo Von is just trying to save his own skin or his own reputation or whatever, he's at least recognizing publicly that this looks horrific. And that's where really the failure to have a good message on immigration comes into play, because Kamala Harris was not able to take the strategy during the election of explaining to people that this is what it would look like. And the reason is because they didn't have a better answer on the border. So all she had was recognizing that it was something that was animating people And so trying to give kind of a moderate version of the rhetoric that Trump was doing and not offering a solution that actually contradicts that logic and offers a promise. Now, she had a very little amount of time to carve out that message, and also she was part of an administration that was viewed as failing on that issue. So kind of an impossible position, but the reality is the Democrats could have crafted that message in terms of ethical, empathetic, and practical policy at the border. So Bernie's trying to do that here, but it's kind of in the beginning stages. And ultimately, this willingness to embrace fascism on the part of Theo Von, you hear it here. Well, he's kind of an authoritarian, but there's some good things about that. And Bernie, I think, gives the right answer, both by interrupting him, stepping in, but also saying that being decisive, being bold is what is a good attribute, not the authoritarianism. But it's clear that some people are recognizing that Trump is in fact authoritarian, and they're liking it and they're willing to accept it. They're flirting with the idea of accepting it, or at this point they just have fully accepted it. So that's where we're at. But the reality is the reason for that is because it's on the menu, it's on the table. And so people, whether they wanted to deny it up until now, or they knew what it was and they just didn't want to say it out loud, whatever, now it's on the table. And so people are recognizing that they can, well, I can either warm up to this or I can become one of the people that is opposed to this. And that seems to be a pretty dangerous thing to do. But the reality is there will come an opportunity to give people a different option. But it's going to take some work, because it's not going to be as simple as propping up some Democrat who has ideas about this or that. It's going to have to be a real alternative to governing, which, whether Trump has embroiled us in the same problems we've already had, he still offered people a different vision of governance. And it's going to be up to whoever is going to wrestle power away from him to offer that. And I think, you see sparks of it with like the Zohran Mamdani's and the mayor of Seattle, I can't remember what her name is. They're trying to carve out a path for policy that can meet some of people's basic needs without running up against some of the kind of culture war tripwires, and kind of raise people's faith in the ability for government to deliver that way. But I think also that can happen on a community-oriented level, where when you look at some of this stuff that's happening in Minnesota, where the community is organizing very effectively to oppose ICE, they're communicating extremely well, and they're coming together because those networks have existed, both predating the Black Lives Matter events, but also strengthened during that time. So networks of mutual aid, as well as just community defense and communication about what the authorities are doing, and applying that to different aspects of meeting people's needs, delivering food, or protecting people that are hiding from ICE, or providing alternatives to government services that are being ripped away by the Trump administration. That's going to be increasingly a way to reach people with an alternative to fascism that they can then connect to a larger political ethic and say, that's the direction that we need to go in this country.
Me too close to, too much to do. The mission is too crucial. Shout it out from the rooftops until I lose vocals. Who gon' take it there? 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 Electricity, 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 electricity.